Today, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker sent a letter to President-elect Donald Trump asking for his state to have more authority over deciding the amount of refugees to accept. Joining us now to explain more is the man himself, Governor Scott Walker. Thank you for joining us. Governor, so what exactly do you want states, Wisconsin, and every state, frankly, to be able to do?
Well, it's all about safety. We want to know who's in our state, particularly if they're refugees coming from places like Syria, where we know the Islamic State has a known presence. We don't want to have happen, sadly, what we've seen happen in many places throughout Europe. We want to know that people have been properly vetted, and we don't have that under the Obama administration, and I believe confidently we're going to have that when Donald Trump's the president.
So it seems so logical to let a state decide who's coming into the state. Why is that? Is this just an Obama policy, and it would be as simple as a policy change for President Donald Trump to fix, or does it have to go through legal machinations?
Well, I think it's something that can be done quite simply. I know last year we were talking with the President's Secretary of Homeland Security, and I know there's a lot of frustration amongst the governors, not just amongst Republicans. Overwhelmingly, obviously, as Republican governors, we were upset, but even some Democrats were upset that they didn't even know who was in their state. And when you think about it, this is not just people coming in from Syria. These are refugees. They are defined, a refugee is someone who's eventually going to go back to their country of origin. I think the whole idea is ridiculous that we're not working with our allies in the Gulf region to make sure that a lot of those folks would be better suited going to some of our partners, some of our allies in the Persian Gulf area, so that eventually, when things improve, they could go back there. If they're coming to the United States, chances are they're not going back. That defies the definition of a refugee. But even for those who legitimately are seeking asylum here, we can't, under this current administration, we can't distinguish between those who might want to do us harm and those who legitimately want to get away from the problems they see in the Middle East.
How does it work? Tell our audience how it works. Do the feds come and say, hey, you know, you're going to have, I don't know, 3,000 refugees who are seeking asylum from various countries coming into Wisconsin. We're placing them there.
They're not even as candid as that. For all the talk and hype about what they do out there, you find out after the fact the states don't have any real ability to have any real control over who's coming in or even knowing until they start. In fact, sometimes you actually hear about it as a governor in the media before you even find out about anything via the government at the federal level. That's just absolutely wrong. It's wrong from a safety standpoint. I just spent about 2 weeks ago, I was in Afghanistan and Kuwait and United Arab Emirates and Germany talking to our servicemen and women, and I know the threats are real. I saw it very vividly in places like Afghanistan, where there's more than 20 different organizations that want to do Americans harm through terrorist-related groups, radical Islamic terrorism groups. We know they're all over the world. The last thing we want is people in without vetting them and knowing that they're going to be safe for our families and our citizens.
Sure. And so, Governor, so let's say a neighboring state like Illinois has a wide-open policy. We'll take as many as you want to give us. You're bordering Illinois. What's to stop a refugee to settle in Illinois and next year move up north to Wisconsin?
Well, that's the problem with this. The federal government isn't doing their job. One of the core elements of our federal government, there shouldn't be many. I'm one of those people who think the federal government should be fairly limited. The power should flow back to the states and, more importantly, back to the people. But protecting us, protecting our borders, protecting our country through our military, protecting our national security should be one of the primary roles of the federal government. And they're failing it right now because we don't know whether they come to Wisconsin, Illinois, or anywhere else. We don't know that there's sufficient vetting being done to ensure that these people are not radical jihadists who are going to do us harm.
It's a big issue we have with Europe. When they go into one country, they can travel freely to another country only on a state level here. Governor Walker, thank you for joining us. Keep us abreast of what's going on with that initiative.
Merry Christmas to you and your viewers.
And you too, Governor, and everyone in Wisconsin. Joining us now with reaction is the author of Defeating Jihad, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Dr. Gorka, you just heard Governor Walker saying, hey, I want to say in which refugees or any are coming into my state. This seems so logical. Why is the Obama policy just put people in where they want to do it?
I can't agree more with the governor. How outrageous. Are we not a republic made up of states? What is this that the federal authorities can do whatever they wish, willy-nilly, placing people that we know, according to the director of the FBI, cannot be adequately vetted across the nation. Not only that, let me add one more outrageous aspect to the way the Syrian refugee crisis has been dealt with. Once the federal authorities that physically cannot vet these people adequately, hands over these individuals who have been given refugee status by Washington to the local charities that place them into American society, at that point, the federal authorities are not allowed to know where those people live. Only the charities that have placed them into the local communities. That is a recipe for disaster, Eric.
Travel freely, as you say, they're not allowed to track them. Doctor, so ISIS has said, infiltrate the American refugee system. Get our fighters in there through the refugee system. Do you think right now, currently, there are ISIS fighters, jihadists, within our refugee system, people we've taken in?
Without a doubt. Just look at what happened in Europe. They have individuals with asylum status, refugees who had asylum status in the European Union, executed attacks in Europe in the last 2 years. That's just a fact. The reality is that when you're coming from a war zone, unless we have the time to vet you with in-depth counterintelligence interrogations, we don't know who you are, because Assad isn't going to give us the data to check who you are. As a result, it is impossible to verify exactly your intention. So ISIS has said, we will use the refugee streams. Of the 400-plus terrorist cases that have been prosecuted in America in the last 15 years, more than half of them involved people who were not born in the United States, many of them who were immigrants or people who had refugee status. These are just the facts, Eric.
All right. Now, you touched on something very important. The federal government, the feds aren't allowed, not allowed to track the refugees once they're placed. What do you mean they're not allowed?
They're not allowed to know where these people... So once the dossier gets... Once they've been ticked, yes, you're an asylum seeker, yes, you're a refugee, they've been approved by the federal government, and then a charity takes over, often a Catholic charity...
Well, I understand the process, but why aren't they allowed? What prohibits them from following?
Privacy rights of people who aren't Americans, Eric. This is the absurdity. This is the same reason that was given as to why the Facebook page of somebody like the San Bernardino killer, the woman who came on a fiancé visa, why her Facebook page, which had jihadist material on it, could not be accessed, could not be read by a federal government employee, because that could have impinged her privacy.
Privacy rights of people who aren't American, and frankly, we're having a hard time vetting. Dr. Gorka, thank you very much.